Have you ever received a letter in the mail? It's a lot of fun to get mail from a grandparent or a friend. My daughter and her grandma write back and forth all the time. Before Mr. McCullison and I were married and we were just friends, we met in college, but then over the summer we had to be apart. He had a job as a youth minister in Oklahoma City, and I went to Scotland to do mission work. We wrote letters back and forth all summer long. And in Scotland, you get mail twice a day. It comes in the morning and again in the afternoon. At least back then it did. This was a long time ago. So if I got a letter from him in the morning mail, I could write back and send it off that very same day in the afternoon mail. And I really loved getting those letters because I was pretty homesick all summer. Well, this week we're going to spend some time learning to write a letter and address an envelope. And you're going to think of somebody you would like to write a letter to. It could be a grandparent or a friend, and that's what you're going to be doing for the next few days for language. Today I'm going to show you how to format the letter and envelope, and it's all in your Shirley textbook, chapter 24. If you need to look back for anything, there's also abbreviations there for roads, streets, state abbreviations, and all kinds of stuff like that. There are several workbook pages for chapter 24 in your packet that came in the brown bag. You can throw those away. I'm not going to do those workbook pages, but you might want to, if you want to do them for fun, you can, or use them as some kind of reference. That's up to you. Otherwise, toss them. I will not ask you to be doing them. I would like you to have your letter written and in the mail by Thursday, and send a picture of yourself, the first grader, putting that letter in the mailbox, and then tell me or tell Mrs. Gibler who you sent your letter to. We would love to know. Okay, I wrote you guys a letter today, so I'm going to show it to you right now. Guess it's already been on the screen, but I'll read it to you now. So, and I formatted it the way I would like for you to format your letter. This is the proper way to format a friendly letter, by putting your own address here at the top. That's so your friend or whoever you send this to can write you a letter back, and they won't have to look up your address. They'll have it right here. And then you also put the date so they know when you wrote it. You don't put your name. Your name does not go in the heading. You just put your street address, and it's okay to abbreviate. Like my address is 10404 Odessa Cemetery Road. I abbreviated road, RD period. And then you put your city and a comma, and then the state is 2 capital letters. Remember, we learned that when we did abbreviations in spelling. And your zip code after that, and then the date that you're writing the letter. And I skipped 4 lines here because that's how you do it on a computer, but if you're handwriting it, you really only have to skip 1 if you want to. Okay, here's what I wrote to you. And then this greeting has a comma after it, so pay attention to that. Dear first graders, I miss you all so much. I have enjoyed all the pictures and videos I've seen of you. It's not the same as real life, but it's better than nothing. I think I understand a little bit now how grandparents feel who live far away and don't get to see you very often. Today, I dipped the cream off the top of some fresh milk I got from a friend who milks her own cows. I put the cream in a jar and shook it until a lump of butter formed at the top. Well, I didn't write at the top. Lump of butter formed. Tomorrow, I'm going to make pancakes to eat with my butter. Yum. What is something new you have done recently? Love, Mrs. McCullison. It's kind of nice to end your letter with a question. That way it invites the person who got the letter to write you back so they can answer your question. And sometimes we write a letter and then we realize, oh, I wanted to say something else and I forgot. So we write what's called a PS. And I have a PS on the back. PS stands for postscript, after the script, after the writing. Did you know Mrs. Gibler's birthday is Saturday? It's April 18th, the same day as Paul Revere's ride. But she's not that old, of course. Okay. Let's talk about what these parts of the letter are called. So do you remember what I said this part is called? Your address and your date. That is called the heading of a letter. Okay? Can you see that? I hope you can see that okay in the camera. The address and date at the top are called the heading. And then when you write dear and the person's name with a comma, this is called the greeting. It can also be called the salutation. Greeting or salutation. Dear Grandma, dear Grandpa, dear Phoebe, dear James. You put their name and then you put a comma, and the dear is capitalized. Then all of this good stuff that you write is called the body of the letter. The body of the letter. And then at the end you can I put love, and you can put love if you're writing to your grandparents or a close friend, or maybe you have a cousin or somebody like that. If you're writing to just a acquaintance, you might put sincerely, or your friend, or something like that. Again, there's a comma here. See that? Love with a comma. Now, if I wrote a closing, okay, sorry, this is called the closing. And then you put your name, and that's called your signature. Okay? Sometimes a closing has, let me write bigger so you can see. Sometimes a closing has 2 words. So if you wrote your friend, think of it kind of like a sentence. You're only going to capitalize the first letter of the closing if it has more than 1 word. So if your closing is your friend, you start with a capital letter here, but the other letters are going to be lowercase, and then you put a comma at the end instead of a period. So that helps me to remember how to do that if I think of it as like a little sentence. Capital letter here, no other capitals, and then a comma at the end. Okay? So those are the parts. Let's go over that real quick one more time. Your address and date is the heading. Dear whoever, comma, is the greeting. All the good stuff, interesting things you write in the letter is the body. That's the main thing about the letter is the body. And then your closing is love, or your friend, or sincerely. And then the signature, you put your name. So you're going to pick somebody, you're going to write a letter, you're going to follow that format. And if you forget what I just showed you, you could always probably go back and watch this video again, but also you can look at your book, page 363. There is a very short example of a letter. They're showing you that address and date is the heading, your greeting, your salutation, your body. Oh yeah, and they remind you to indent the paragraphs. Did you notice that on my letter to you, I indented the paragraphs right here, here, and here? And you can use any kind of paper you want. Some people have stationery, but stationery is kind of tricky because it doesn't usually have lines. I think notebook paper works really good because it has lines. Most people have it laying around the house, and if you mess up, it's not a big deal to get a new piece of paper. Looking through chapter 24, let me show you some things that could help you. On page 362 are tips for writing friendly letters. Talk or write as if you were talking to the person face to face. Tell information about yourself or friends that you both know or family members you both know. Tell stories, tell jokes, share pictures or drawings or poems. If you are writing a return letter, that means somebody wrote to you, now you're writing back to them. Be sure to answer any questions that were asked and repeat the question so your reader will know what you're writing about. You asked about. So like this letter ends with, what is something new you have done recently? If you were to write me back, you could say something, you asked what I had done recently. Well, I went for a bear hunt in my neighborhood, or something like that. And then end your letter in a way that invites the reader to write you back, like with a question or something. Okay. Then there's several pages in this chapter that just go back over the parts of the letter. This page, 367, has all the abbreviations I was telling you about: addresses, titles, dates, states. Here's how you set up your envelope on page 366. And I'll show you an example of that in a minute. And I think that's the main part of what you needed out of this chapter. Very good. Okay, so in addition to writing your letter, you're also going to write your envelope. And here's what I'm working on. I'm going to send a thank you note to this cousin because she sent me a picture. And here's what your envelope will look like. Your name and return address. This is so if this letter gets lost or for some reason this address is not good, they can't deliver to this address, they'll send it back to you. So it's important to put your return address here. So it's your name and your own address. Then in the middle, you put the person you're writing to and their address. That's who the post office is going to deliver it to, and it's important to have a zip code. Then you're going to have to put on your mask, go to the post office, and buy some stamps if you don't have any. That's what I did yesterday. And the post office lady was also wearing a mask, and she had a sheet of plastic over the counter and hanging down in front of the counter, so it was pretty interesting. Put your stamp up in your top right corner, and you're ready to put your letter in and mail it. Okay, so you have 4 days to think of who you want to write to, write a fantastic letter, fill out an envelope, get it in the mail, and send us a picture. I'm looking forward to hearing about who you all decided to write to. Have fun with this!